Hello, Marvel Legends, and welcome to a new episode of Displaying Model Behavior. And what are we doing today? It is another team building exercise. I don't know about you, but I love doing these. I love putting these teams together. This is like a nice little concept I'm really happy I came up with. I know, right? Toss, toss, pat, pat. So now I'm going to do one of my favorite teams from one of my favorite eras. It is Dark Reign, and we are talking Thunderbolts and Dark Avengers. So let's get to it. First of all, the one man who's responsible for bringing these guys together, it's kind of a combination, isn't it? Because we have, of course, the modern Green Goblin, Norman Osborn. Now, of course, it's not in his Green Goblin guise. The deal behind this is, of course, Norman Osborn is reformed, quotation marks, because everyone gets reformed in the Marvel Universe. That's just what people kind of expect. It's like, yes, you were a crazy murderer, but there were extenuating circumstances. And that was always Osborn's get out of jail free card. He was like, I was under the influence of the Goblin formula. It wasn't me. It was, reduced, what's the phrase? Reduced culpability, basically. Reduced responsibility. So we have Green Goblin, and of course we have Norman Osborn himself, the Iron Patriot. Now, we're going to get to the Iron Patriot a bit later, because he doesn't appear until we get onto the Dark Avengers section. He also has his little Iron Patriot helmet here, but I'm going to put him off to one side because we're not there yet. And the Green Goblin is only operating sort of behind the scenes. Because really, the government, obviously, they believe that Norman Osborn isn't the Green Goblin anymore. They're like, no, he's reformed. He's just Norman Osborn. So they put him in charge of leading the Thunderbolts. And the person who he then puts in charge is like his field commander. Sort of not really his decision, but we get Songbird, and Songbird is every bit the heart of the team. She's like the conscience of the Thunderbolts. She has been for a long time by this point. She's the one constant member of the Thunderbolts. In every iteration, every version, pretty much, it's always Songbird who's there. And this is a little kit bash I'm really happy about, because I hate the Songbird head that comes with this figure. But I just threw on one of the cuckoos, added some white paint to the back of her hair, and boom, we've got such a better Songbird. And also, with the cuckoo pink in the eyes, that looks perfect. It matches her power set. Absolutely fantastic. So Songbird is kind of the field leader of Norman Osborn's Thunderbolts. But we have a few others as well. We have Radioactive Man. I was about to say Radiation Man, but I've made that Simpsons joke already, but now it's in my head. We have the beautifully bright, translucent green Radioactive Man. I love this figure, love the expression in the face, and of course the way the sun shines through it when you hold him up. He just looks so pretty. Now, this isn't exactly what he looked like in this iteration of the comics. At this point, he was wearing like a full Marty McFly Back to the Future radiation suit. But the only reason he wore that, though, was actually just to make the public feel more comfortable when he was around. Originally, he wore it because he was emitting dangerous radiation, but by this point, he just wore it to make people feel safer in his presence. Now, we had Moonstone on the team, but come on, Marvel, come on, Hasbro, where's my Moonstone figure? It's not here. Okay, there was a Moonstone that came out with a Thunderbolts box set, I think, but are you going to buy it for me? Because I'm not, because she's damn expensive. So until we get a new Moonstone, I ain't having her on the team. Sorry, but hopefully, we've got we're getting the other Thunderbolts. So it should just be a matter of time before we get Moonstone, Fixer, and Atlas. Fingers crossed. But who we do have on the team is the Thunderbolts' dirty little secret, basically. And that is Bullseye. And I love what they did with Bullseye here in this story arc. Whereas he was literally their secret ace up the sleeve, basically. So they would do all of their missions, and during the time, this was during the Superhuman Registration Act type period, so they would have to go out and capture rogue superheroes who are not operating within the government. And Bullseye, I think they had like a chip in his brain or something. They were like, if you murder anyone, we will blow your head up. So he was kind of on a tight leash, but it was fun to just see them be like, all right, unleash Bullseye. It really sort of set him apart as like a serious A-list threat. So that was really cool. Now, looking at what else I have here, I'm thinking, yep, all right, you know what? Already it's time to go on to the Dark Avengers, because really, unfortunately, with the with Osborn's Thunderbolts, there's a few characters who we just don't have representation for yet. There's Penance, and I would love a Penance figure. But first of all, we need Speedball. Because for those of you not in the know, Speedball blamed himself, rightfully so to an extent, for what happened with the, Nitro blowing up the school, kicking off the superhuman civil war. So he wore this costume as penance, and it was very emo. It was quite edgelord. He had like all these spikes inside his costume, and every time they pierced his skin, the pain like activated his powers. So it was kind of cool, actually. I thought it was a decent sort of character arc. But anyway, we need a Penance, and we need a Swordsman as well. Hold that thought. Someone at the door. And we're back. So, where were we? Yes, we pretty much have the Dark Thunderbolts here already. They were never called the Dark Thunderbolts in this iteration. It was just the Thunderbolts under Norman Osborn. What was cool in one section, though, like there was so many dealings within dealings and sneaky goings on with Norman. And at one point, there was like a breakout in their prison facility. And Osborn was like, well, I guess it's time for Daddy to come home. And he just, took out the goblin outfit. And, there was some passing comment of like, oh, it smells of like death and blondes or something. Some really messed up Osborn logic. And I was like, yeah, he is an evil bar steward. But it was very cool. Like he brought out the Green Goblin and just wrecked shop. And you realize like, wow, the Green Goblin is a big money player. So what obviously happens is the secret invasion takes place. The Skrulls try to take over the world, like the sneaky little buggers they are. And just by pure luck, more than anything else, with the eyes of the world watching and the Skrulls about to win, it's Osborn who gets the kill shot on the Queen. And everyone sees basically Norman Osborn save the day. And he is just hailed as the savior of the human race. And so Tony Stark, who it was under his watch that this happened, he's ousted as the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Norman Osborn is put in place as the #1 cop in the United States. So Norman Osborn becomes the head of Hammer. I don't think Hammer was ever an acronym for anything in particular. I think he just changed the name from S.H.I.E.L.D. because he wanted to, get rid of that Tony Stark kind of connection and make it his own thing. So when that happens, he kind of separates off the Thunderbolts into their own thing. So we say goodbye to Songbird and Radioactive Man, and we get our Dark Avengers. And this is where it gets really, really fun. So I'm going to have the Green Goblin behind Osborn here, because there's always the spectre of the Green Goblin sort of looming behind the respectable Norman Osborn. And I love what he did, taking Tony Stark's suit and just painting it red, white, and blue and dressing himself in this patriotic look. As it's such a flipping the finger to Tony Stark, and it's a wonderful sort of example of Norman Osborn's personality. So this is the old Toy Biz Iron Patriot armor. I'd love to get an updated version. Some people make the Dark Avengers with the Endgame War Machine, and that looks really cool as well. But I've gone for, the old Toy Biz Iron Patriot, which is a little bit small in scale, but with the Osborn head on there, it kind of works. I dig it. So Bullseye remains on the team, but as we know, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, they can't have Bullseye on the team because that would be like a public relations nightmare. So Bullseye becomes the new, let me fix his bow and arrow on here. Bullseye becomes the new Hawkeye, which is such a great idea of going back to exactly what the Thunderbolts originally were, villains masquerading as heroes. And this was just so much fun with the character of Bullseye that they basically let him come out and play and operate in open sight, basically. So he puts on the Hawkeye gear. He's wearing the mask, obviously, but the unmasked Bullseye head works brilliantly for this kit-bashed figure here. I love how maniacal the bald bullseye looks here. It's so awesome. And with this head sculpt, he actually has the bullseye. It's not just painted on, it's like ingrained like a scar into his forehead. It's really wicked. Then just with the maniacal look on his face, so much fun. This is one of my sleeper favorite figures. So we have Dark Hawkeye here, Bullseye, just living his best psychotic life. So that's really fun. And I'll put regular Bullseye behind him. Oh, actually, I'll do a little thing. Here we go. We'll have regular Bullseye elevated a little bit. So we'll have their dark versions behind them. I kind of like what I'm doing here. I might make this a proper display at some point, but we need more characters. I'll just get this out of the way at the moment. Of course, we need a classic old Miss Marvel, because Moonstone became Miss Marvel. She wore the Miss Marvel costume, and again, it was a great, villain hiding in plain sight kind of thing. But we don't have a Miss Marvel figure, at least not one that I can get my hands on anytime soon. Not in that exact costume. If there's a similar comparison, I'm sure you'll tell me in the comments. Also, we need Marvel Boy. We don't have a Marvel Boy. So what we do have, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking while saying it, the closest sort of visual is kind of Marvel here. So I'm gonna, and also he's wearing the Marvel type colors that Moonstone wore. He's not wearing her bikini type thing. That would look a little bit odd. But I'm not gonna include him in the display because we all know it's not right. And unlike Whitney Houston, I will say it's not right and it's not okay. So, but the display, I'm gonna make it anyway. Pack your bags up and leave. I'm sorry, that song's a banger. Right, where were we? So, speaking of new versions of old heroes. Oh, that was one I forgot. Oh, God, I'm so terrible. I'm bad at this. In the Dark Thunderbolts, we, of course, how can I forget? We have the Mac Gargan Venom. Jeez, I can't believe I forgot to include him, but here he is now. So he's in the video. That's what matters. That's what's important. The Mac Gargan Venom, looking so badass. This was a great point where basically Eddie Brock had cancer and he wanted to sort of atone for his sins. So he sold the Venom symbiote. He was like, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. So he gave it up for auction. And first of all, it was bought by a mobster. I can't remember the name of the mobster, but he bought it for his son because his son was like a complete waste of space, basically. And he thought, well, I want my son to, have a legacy, be a big time player, so I'm going to give him the Venom symbiote. And the Venom symbiote bonded with him and very quickly realized, nah, this guy's a loser. So it just waited until he was swinging high above the city and then went, peace. I'm out, see ya, and just left him, and he just plummeted to his death. And it was like, wow, the Venom symbiote was a dick at this point in time, because it was later revealed, I think in the Agent Flash Thompson Venom, that the reason the Venom symbiote has been so aggressive and unpleasant and horrible is because it had something wrong with it. It shouldn't be like that. And they fixed that, and it became a nice, docile thing. But this is like the peak of the Venom symbiote, just being this awful, horrible, cancerous, evil entity. So when it bonded with Mac Gargan, it was like this terrible sort of like drug for him because he hated it. There was all these really sort of introspective scenes where he's like rocking back and forth saying like he feels this coldness inside him, which is the symbiote, but he like can't get rid of it. So it was a really tortured kind of thing. So this was the Venom they had in the Thunderbolts. But of course, this Venom, he's not fit for public consumption. You can't have this Venom out for the people. But what you can have is a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. So that's what Norman Osborn did. He managed to create, manufacture, cultivate some sort of drug that allowed the symbiote to like reduce and regress back down to its less monstrous normal size, so that Mac Gargan could pass himself off as Spider-Man, which was kind of a funny sort of juxtaposition because he was still mentally completely deranged and, he was still fighting this awful, horrible, parasitic creature, but he looked like good old Spider-Man, so that was kind of fun. Now then, we have the heavy hitters and the big time heavy hitters. So first of all, instead of Thor, we had the god of war, Ares. Now, this figure was originally a builder figure, and then they released him sort of as a single release figure. This is the single release one. I love the fact that you can remove the helmet. That's great. And Ares, I did read his limited series when it first came out, and I promptly forgot it. But he's actually like a fun character. He's not just a mean version of Thor. If I remember, I should have done my research before this, but I think he has a kid that he's trying to like look after and support. It's a bit God of War-y, which makes sense for the God of War. Is that like part of the Greek mythology? Does a God of War always have a kid? But either way, he has like responsibilities, and he is like a take no prisoners, super badass, hack you up with a gigantic sword and an axe type person. But he's not a complete like lunatic. I'm not sure what his reasons were for joining the team. Again, I would love to give like a proper Wikipedia for everything here, but like I'm just one man, and there's a lot of information to remember. Plus, I love reading the comments and like having you guys fill me in on the stuff that I've forgotten. That's actually kind of fun. So we have Ares, and Ares, things don't work out too well for him. He's a little, shall we say, torn by the end of it. So speaking of which, actually no, I'll save him for last. I'll save that guy for last, because now we have Daken, the Wolverine replacement, the son of Wolverine. And I love this character. Such a fun, interesting character. Writers can kind of really go ham with him and do sort of crazy sort of storylines regarding his mental state, relationships, sexuality, aggression, passion, like lust for power. There's so much going on with this character. And essentially, Norman Osborn just recruited him by coming to him with the notion that, like, look, this probably doesn't hold much appeal to you, but if you do it, it's really going to piss off your dad. And that was all it took. So Daken put on the classic brown tan Wolverine costume and became the Dark Wolverine. And that was a fun little dynamic there, because let's face it, it's a superhero team. Every superhero team needs to have a Wolverine character. So that was Daken there. And then finally, rounding out the Dark Thunderbolts roster, we have, because we don't have Moonstone or Marvel Boy, we have the big gun, the Sentry. He doesn't have a big gun, he is the big gun. I've done, my Legends Legacy review on the Sentry. I've done a few little videos on the Sentry because I love this character. It's just so cool. It's Superman if Superman was mentally unhinged. And I love that. And the story in the Dark Avengers was so dark and really made Norman Osborn the most evil character in the world, because he knew how powerful the Sentry was. So he was, out of the kindness of his heart, he allowed Bob Reynolds, the Sentry, and his wife to, have accommodation in Avengers Tower. And he was always, so cat-handed. And he was always looking out for Bob and his best interests, and trying to like make him think, oh, I'm your friend and whatnot. And he was looking after his wife and saying like, oh, we don't worry, Mrs. Reynolds, we can help your husband. And eventually he got sick of her interfering, and he wanted to have complete control of the Sentry. So he just asked nicely, really, Bullseye to murder Bob Reynolds' wife. And so Bullseye he strangles her and then pushes her out of a helicopter, just to be sure. And then, of course, Norman comes to the Sentry and he's like, Bob, I'm so sorry, your wife was so terrified of you, she took her own life. And at that point, like, Bob goes out to lunch, and it's the void that takes over the Sentry's mind. And that leads, of course, to the ultimate downfall. It's all about Osborn's lust for power. That's the overarching story, is that he cannot stand the fact that there's anyone with more power than him, because the more you get, the more you want. And at this point, Osborn is super powerful. He is virtually like the president of the world at this point. But Loki, God bless him, gets in Osborn's ear and he's like, if you're so powerful, why are you letting the Asgardians live on Earth? And he's like, well, time to get rid of them. Time for the eviction. So we have the Siege storyline where it's Osborn launching a war against Asgard. And at this point, everything goes cuckoo bananas. And long story short, Ares tries to, rebel against Osborn. Sentry rips him in half. And eventually Thor flies Sentry into the sun to kill him for a while, as is. And ultimately, what's really nice is that the person who gets the finishing blow on Norman Osborn is Spider-Man, as it rightly should be. Basically, the veil of respectability is lifted off of Norman. He loses his Iron Patriot mask, and underneath he's got the Green Goblin makeup painted on his face, and he's just going, Daddy's hat's fallen off. He's gone out to lunch, and Spider-Man just puts him out once and for all. And that was the end of Norman Osborn's Dark Reign, and it's the end of the Dark Reign video. Guys, what do you think? Do you have your own Dark Reign display, Dark Avengers, Dark Thunderbolts display? Did I forget anyone? I mean, obviously we have Moonstone and Marvel Boy. Those are the two big ones. I would love to have an updated Dakin as well. Tell me, what figures do you want to see Hasbro bring out? Comment below, let me know. And guys, if you enjoyed this video, you like what you see and you want to see more, then join the 6-1 Clicks by clicking the like, share and subscribe buttons. And if you really enjoy what you see, then you can go over to patreon.com/displaying model behavior. Throw a few Marvel bucks my way. In the meantime though, guys, that's it for today. Enjoy the Data Blast coming up now. Some of my favorite things found on Instagram. Check the names of the creators and go give them a follow because they do fantastic work. Whew! And until next time, keep displaying model behavior.